Koudelka Manga Overview Chapter 1 Introduction to Koudelka and Iwahara Yuji. A mysterious girl, locked up in a mental asylum for an indeterminate amount of time, finally escapes with the help of a little boy. Prostitutes that have once littered the streets are silently disappearing in the dead of night. A necklace that the girl holds. Its importance is unknown. A scheme plotted by the doctor of the mental asylum with funding given by an unknown rich benefactor to get the girl back. One name is common amongst all of these scenarios and ties into every single one of them. Koudelka. Yuji Iwahara was born in Memanbatsu, Hokkaido. After graduating from art school, he joined Hudson Soft and became a graphic artist, working on video games such as Mega Bomberman and Kishin Doji Zenkai FX Bajra Fight. His manga debut started in 1994 in Kodansha's Afternoon, having won the Fall Afternoon 4 Seasons Award, of which he would win 3 more times over the next 2 years. His main claim to fame is his work on King of Thorn and Chikyu Misaki. He's also worked on Cat Paradise, which was serialized in Champion Red in April 2006. He also contributed character designs to a few anime, such as Sakugan and Darker Than Black. Chapter 2 Escape from Newton's Sanatorium. The manga starts with a black-haired girl covered in nothing but her hospital gown crashing through the window of the multi-level Newton Sanatorium. Dr. Hans and his guards are looking for her, revealing her name is Koudelka, as she tells them that she's checking out. Dr. Hans tells them to release the dogs, as his assistant asks for some help in bandaging his hand as the girl wounded him in her escape. Hans pulls out a pair of scissors and kills the man before cutting to the girl running away from the guard dogs. He pulls out a necklace and hypnotizes the dogs to return to their masters. The manga then cuts to a little boy talking to his mom's headstone before leaving and reassuring his mother that everything is fine, tying his scarf around the headstone. Once again, the manga cuts back to Koudelka at the edge of the cliff with nowhere to go. She accidentally slips and falls into the little boy's wagon before he runs off with her in tow. Dr. Hans and his guards surmise that she fell down and that they'll have to climb down another way, as it is too dark. We then see the boy, whose name is Joshua, conversing with an adult about his job with the sea captain. It's revealed that his mother came from London to buy the hut in which he lives in. The adult then reveals that a murderer escaped from the hospital and that he should be careful. Joshua returns home and questions himself whether Koudelka is a murderer before throwing away her bloodied cloak in the ocean. He heads into town to gather more information about Koudelka. The whole town talks about the hospital and the supposed murderer before we see Dr. Hans and his guards in town looking for her. Dr. Hans is being questioned by someone presumably higher up in the Royal Medical Science Society, berating him for having let Koudelka escape. The mysterious man tells Dr. Hans to kill her if things get too dangerous, and Dr. Hans responds that Koudelka knows too much and must be captured alive. Dr. Hans leaves, and one of his guards shows him that they've found Koudelka's gown, which Joshua had thrown out, washed up on the beach. Dr. Hans addresses the town to look out for Koudelka. Joshua then runs back home to where Koudelka is, and one of the guards takes notice of him leaving. He returns to see that Koudelka has awoken and tells her he threw out her clothes and that she can wear his mother's. We switch back to Dr. Hans questioning a local about the old church, with the local telling him that only a boy lives there. Cutting back to Joshua and Koudelka, he gives her his mother's clothing and questions what's wrong with Koudelka. Koudelka questions why she isn't in the picture of him and his mother, which was taken back in London. He tells him that she can't seem to recall who she is before the chapter ends. Chapter 3 Confrontation. Having lost her memories, Koudelka questions if she is a friend of Joshua, and she remarks that she doesn't look like his sister. Joshua tells her that he doesn't know her and has only rescued her yesterday. Joshua questions the people following her, and she is confused before Joshua tells her that she's killed a person. Joshua tells her that it's only gossip, and she tells him that it's all dark inside her head. They're startled by Joshua's horse, Toby, and Joshua sees Dr. Hans approaching his house with his guards and one of the locals. Hans questions if the boy is living alone and remarks the house is suspicious. The local knocks on the door while Joshua and Koudelka slip out through the back. Hans and his guards enter the building, and Hans hears them escaping and orders his men to guard the house. Joshua and Koudelka escape into the house, into an old chapel, which has an underground route to escape from their pursuers. Koudelka remarks that she's felt this sensation before, as she sees Joshua's mother hugging his back. He tells Joshua that his mother is behind him, before taking a look again to see that it's just an ordinary seagull. Dr. Hans calls out to Koudelka, having caught up to her and Joshua. He tells her to surrender quietly and he'll leave Joshua alone. Koudelka is far too important to kill. She questions his purpose, and he tells her that she knows too much and that she knew it would have ended this way. He questions whether she wants the truth to be told in front of the boy. If the boy hears the truth, he would also die, if not by Dr. Hans, then by someone in the organization. He seems to relent, confirming if Joshua would truly be safe if she surrendered, before a flock of seagulls descended and attacked Hans. Koudelka remarks that it wasn't only her imagination, that it was Joshua's mother behind the attack. Joshua and Koudelka take this time while he's being attacked to escape underground, while Koudelka questions what happened with the birds. They exit the old chapel and are noticed by one of the guard dogs. He tells Joshua to run and grasps at her necklace, only to find it missing. The dogs get kicked away by Toby, Joshua's horse, and they ride off away from Hans and his henchmen. Koudelka worries about having dragged Joshua into her troubles, but he pays it no mind and tells Koudelka they'll get a lift from the sea captain on his boat. She asks where they're going, and Joshua tells her that they are going to London, where he was born. Chapter 4. Ladies of the Night. We see Dr. Hans being beaten by one of his allies, a Frenchman whose connections are unknown to Hans. His name is revealed as Dougal by another member, who berates Hans and locks him in a cage because of his failures. Hans questions what will happen to Koudelka, and he's informed that someone else is given the task of capturing her. We switch over to Koudelka and Joshua, having just landed in London, with them heading over to where he used to live with his mother. They arrive at a pub called Club Mary, and Joshua reveals that only the first floor is a pub, the second and third floors are a brothel, and that they lived in the back and his mom was a prostitute. They enter the living quarters to find it empty of life. As they enter, a woman swings a weapon at Koudelka's back. Koudelka swiftly disarms her, and it's revealed to be a pregnant woman. Out of nowhere, 3 kids charge at Koudelka, and Joshua tells them all to stand down. They all calm down and talk with Koudelka, revealing to the pregnant woman that she has lost her memory. The pregnant woman is revealed to be Pacey, and Joshua questions what's happened to the rest of the women who live there. The women, Mrs. Kitty and Rosanna, show up, having talked to Scotland Yard about the missing prostitutes. They are surprised to see Joshua and talk about the missing woman. They think someone is kidnapping the girls, but with no proof, the police won't do anything. The girls decide to throw a party for Joshua and Koudelka. While they set up the party and close the store, the manga cuts to a mysterious, fog-clad stranger heading towards the brothel. Koudelka remarks about the fog, and one of the girls ends up asleep suddenly. They don't think anything of it, and everyone heads off to bed with Koudelka sleeping with Pacey. Mysterious man enters the brothel, and Joshua also mysteriously falls asleep. Koudelka closes the window, and Pacey starts to talk about Joshua and his mother. Pacey reveals that Joshua and his mother left London because his mother became sick with a disease and that she wanted cleaner air than in London. Pacey mysteriously falls asleep, and Koudelka struggles to stay awake as the man makes his way up to her room. She falls asleep, and Mary's voice inside her tells her to wake up and save Pacey. She wakes up and throws a bottle at the man. He tells her that it's all a dream and not a trick. She runs at him and demasks him, revealing him to be an Asian person before he disappears into a burst of fog, having taken Pacey with him. Chapter 5. Character Design, Art Style, and Paneling. There isn't much to say about the character design. All the characters have fairly typical anime/manga designs, with the most care and attention being put into Koudelka. Besides a few of the villains, most of the designs of the characters are entirely forgettable and don't serve to enhance the story much besides the titular character, Koudelka, and even she doesn't stand out much unless you've had prior knowledge of the PS1 video game this manga was based off of. The art style is also equally not memorable or very detailed to look at, besides a few standout panels. The manga has an atmosphere and appearance of being very dark, with the use of blacks, grays, and lack of detail in environments in most panels, making it seem as if the manga takes place in a dark void. The female characters are drawn in a very manga/anime style, with sharp noses, wide eyes, etc., while the males are drawn very realistically, with strong noses, smaller eyes, and more interesting anatomic details overall. I don't have much to say about the paneling either. Very typical manga paneling, and the panels have a very average flow to them. Some chapters have a lot of dialogue and feel very cramped, especially as the manga gets to the end chapters. There are a few standout panels every couple chapters showing a building or an action set piece, but that's about it. Chapter 6. Thoughts on the PS1 video game. It's hard to talk about Koudelka, the spin-off manga, without talking about the PS1 video game that inspired it of the same name. Koudelka on the PS1 is most known for one thing amongst those that have played it, and it is the voice and mocap acting by the actors themselves. What most people don't know is that the voice actors all acted in the same space as one another, giving the dialogue and performance a very natural and realistic feeling. The technology used for motion capture, having been provided by Santa Monica-based studio Futurelight, was said to have been on par with Hollywood's technology at the time. Another standout feature of the game at the time was its soundtrack, having been composed by Kikuta himself, the developer and founder of Saknoth. Instead of using looped music tracks over and over typical of the RPG genre, he opted for more ambient orchestral music combined with unorthodox folk music and other genres. There isn't one specific name to call his music, and that is felt throughout the entire game. While the gameplay was your typical SRPG layout, moving the characters one by one across a chess-like board system, the game also utilizes an Elder Scrolls-like system when it comes to combat. The more you use a weapon category, the better you get with it, leading to enhanced damage with that weapon. The CGI cutscenes are also very beautiful, outperforming the original Resident Evil 1 and surpassing, in my opinion, even the Final Fantasy VII CGI cutscenes. Despite the lackluster gameplay to some, the game outperforms its peers on the same console with its masterful motion capture, voice acting, sound design, and a story that, while nothing mind-blowing, tugs on the heartstrings and makes you feel that the characters and that the medieval monastery of Nemeton is real and alive. Chapter 7. Ending thoughts on the manga. The manga does what it needs to do when it comes to being a spin-off is the best way I can describe it. It lays out the groundwork for what happened to Koudelka a year on from the events of the last game and was supposed to lay down the process of a sequel, which never happened. The art style serves its purpose and is sometimes difficult to look at times. The character designs are nothing memorable and are entirely hit or miss. The only people who would read this are the people who have played the PS1 game, with a few references thrown into the manga for those who have played. Otherwise, it's hard to say it stands on its own, separate from the game. Even if you have played the games and understand the few references it has, it's hard to say that both of these pieces of media are set in the same universe. I would say it's worth a read if you enjoyed Koudelka immensely. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you all have a fantastic day and keep on reading. Thank you.